Hey, what is up, guys? Welcome back to the newest episode of the PRIMLLIFE podcast. When it comes to a lot of issues that are super prevalent in today's world, you find so many people who just kind of shy away from them. So many celebrities, people in the media just don't address really important issues. Stuff that is highly important and needs to be talked about if history is going to go the way that we want it to go. And people think generally want other people to pick up the torch for them. As we see what's happening right now, that has only caused problems. What's currently happening in the world is I would say, just evil. It's plainly evil. People are dropping their morals to appease their audiences, and in my opinion, that's completely unacceptable. And I always haven't done the best job of talking about the issues that I believe are worth talking about. But when I saw your page, I knew that I would be doing everyone a disservice by not having you on. So Jamie, thank you for joining me today.
Thank you for having me.
Of course. So you're a huge pro-life advocate.
Yes.
Huge pro-life advocate. Like you guys don't like this. That's her thing, being pro-life. How did you get like that? Like, what's the story that led you into wanting to make it as big of a part of you as it is?
Yeah. So I grew up Catholic, and I went to Catholic school, and around 6th grade is the first time I was ever introduced into what being pro-life was. We had a baby bottle drive, so you got this little baby bottle and you would put change in it and try and collect the most change. You take it back to the school and they told you they'd give you a prize. And of course, I was 12. I had no idea what I was doing or anything. I just knew there was a prize. And so I got so proud once I filled that little baby bottle up, which was hilarious because it was all of my mom's money. But I turned it in and I got this little baby feet pin. And people see them, they're this big, and they come in all different colors: silver, gold, pink, blue.
Yeah.
And I kept it on my shelf, and I was like, that was my prize. But I kept it. I had a little pin jar on my dresser, and so, and then each year they do the baby bottle drive for school, and I'd do it, and I'd keep collecting these little pins. Fast forward to high school age and such, we moved to Wisconsin. I didn't go to Catholic school anymore. It kind of dropped off a little bit from something I was doing. We didn't really have the baby bottle drive or anything. But going into my freshman year of college, I met a guy, one of my best friends, and I won't say his name to keep him private, but after talking with him and getting to know him a lot, he opened up to me about his story, and his mom was raped at 19 years old, and he was conceived, and everyone told her to abort him. Yeah. The priest, her doctors, her dad, literally everyone. And so his birth mom, she thought about it and actually decided to choose life, thank God. And she parented him for about a year, but wasn't able to do that. So she placed him with an adoptive family, and he went on, and now he's one of my best friends to this day. He was a volunteer firefighter. He's made a total life for himself. And I sat there and I really thought about it, and I opened up a little bit to my mom about it, and she sat there and she's like, wow, he shouldn't be here today. And I was like, well, what do you mean? And she goes, he's the abortion lobby's biggest target. Conceived and raped. She was 19. She was single, and he's black.
That's the exact statistic that they market to. Wow.
Yep. And so I went to college. At the time, I was an athlete. I was a gymnast. And so I wasn't focused on that. I always thought about him and stuff. And 3 days into college, I broke my leg pretty bad. And so I threw myself a pity party because new school, no friends, broken leg. And I had already been introduced to the Newman Center, which is our Catholic center on campus. And the lady in charge of it at the time, she came to my dorm and brought me chocolate and flowers and all these things. And she actually was like, we're going to church. And I was like, it's a Wednesday. We're going to church?
Isn't that only reserved for Sundays?
Yeah, right?
Yeah.
And I was like, because my mom, when she dropped me off at school, she made me go to this Newman Center. And I was like, great, now they're going to know me, Jamie the gymnast, but it's also super Catholic. And I was like, oh, gosh. That was back before I was more into my faith like I am now. But So we went to church, and after church, she brought me to this coffee shop, and she's like, well, what are you going to do? Like, and I was like, I don't know. And she's like, well, you have to make friends somehow. Like, you know, go to the club fair next week and try and, you know, join some clubs. And I was like, you know what? That sounds like a great idea. I was like, I'm going to go and look at the club fair. And at this club fair, there was nothing really that pertained at all to me, besides the fishing club, but then I couldn't fish because I had a broken leg. But what was there was the Forge Club, which is fighting for our rights and gender equity. Okay. A reproductive justice club, which is anything but reproduction. And like a bunch of like college Democrats and such like that, and just stuff that didn't align with me and my morals. And for the first time, I was like, oh my gosh, wake up. You know, my mom had been telling me college campuses is this really just dark culture. Yeah. And I saw it and I was like, this is crazy. And so I was like, okay, well, that's really sad. So then I got just sad again because I was like, I didn't realize I could start a group. I didn't realize I could start clubs and all this stuff. And I was just like, I don't know anyone. I'll just stick with my Catholic friends and go on my way. Fast forward to 2 days before winter break, and at the bottom of our student union, there was this sign, and it said, go to the March for Life. And I was like, yes, like, I want to do that. This will be the only time I can do it because I'm not competing right now, because I've never been able to go before because it's in the middle of the gymnastics season. Yeah. And so I got super excited. I called my mom. I was like, I don't care what you're getting me for Christmas. I'll drop it out. I want you to pay for this trip for me to go. And she said, absolutely, we would love for you to go, awesome. You know. And I emailed the people, and I never heard back.
Really?
And I was like, well, dang. And then I sat there, and I was like, well, maybe this isn't, like, God's telling me, maybe not. Like, what's going on? So I came home for winter break and kind of forgot about it. Yeah. I went back to school, and we have these things called Newman Nights. And they're Thursday nights, you go to church, and then you hang out afterwards. And the only reason I actually went is because I got to hang out with my friends afterwards. I wasn't thrilled about the church part, but don't tell my mother. And I got invited, and I was like, oh, do I really want to go? And then I was like, it's been a month. I haven't seen my friends. I should go. Yeah. So I went, and afterwards, we were having like a dinner just to reconnect with everyone. And then there was this girl there. Her name's actually Teresa. And she was standing there, and on the back of her shirt, it said Warriors for Life. And I, like, ran over to her, and I was like, hi, I've been trying to contact you. I think I emailed you. Or, like, I want to join your club. Yeah. And she's like, it's not a club. And I was like, what do you mean it's not a club? Warriors for Life. Winona State University Warriors. Like, and she's like, well, to be a recognized club on campus, we need 10 people. We currently have 5. And I was like, we're in a room with 50 Catholics, and you're telling me we have 5? And she goes, well, they might be pro-life, but will they do something about it? And I said, well, that's unacceptable. That's not for me. And I said, you know what? I said, fine, we're going to get this figured out. Like, I said, this campus has such a culture of death. Like, it was so dark and everything. They need someone to spread the light. I mean, it's 70% women. Like, they need help. Like, yeah. And so she's like, all right, well, if you're motivated to do it, let's do it. And so we started with us 5. I became the treasurer. I had no idea what I was doing. And we had our, like, first meeting. There was 7 of us. And I was like, okay, just a few more for club status. And so then I just I threw my roommates on, like, I was like, just come and, like, sign the thing. And, like, you don't have to come back. But, you know, and we got it approved. And we had found out that this club had been on campus for 25 years, the Warriors for Life. And in 2016, they just had a terrible transition and no one took it over. And so then it just died, and they didn't, like, no one just to do it. And so in 2018, 2019, we got it back up and running, and we went from us 5 to now we have about 35 members.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
That's a big change. Wow.
Yeah, we're one of the biggest clubs in the country, especially for our size of university, because it's only 7,000 people. Wow. So, yeah, it's pretty good. But I contacted Students for Life because I saw them on Instagram, and people I followed had shared their stuff because, you know, I follow mostly Catholics. And I was like, I think you work with students. It seems like you do. I don't know what you guys do.
It's in the name, at least.
But I would like some assistance. We have this club, and we don't know what we're doing. And then we found out, you know, we got connected with them. We read their stuff. We signed like a licensing agreement, so like we're affiliated with them. And then they sent our regional coordinator, and we did this tour display on Planned Parenthood. And we had these giant banners. It was in March, so it's almost been exactly like 3 years.
Wow.
Like to the day. But that was my first big event. And we had these giant banners, and we were talking about how Planned Parenthood hurts women. Yeah. And, you know, like the 3% lie, because they lie that abortion is 3% of what they do. But anyways, we did that, and the regional coordinator came, and he met me. His name is Noah. And he told me, he was like, Jamie, he's like, this is your first time doing anything? And I was like, yeah. And he's like, well, you know what you're doing. And I'm like, I have no idea what I am doing. And he's like, well, we have these fellowships for leaders on campuses nationally, and I would love for you to apply. I'm nominating you. And I laughed at him, and I was like, oh yeah, I got an email about those. I looked at them. Those are for leaders. I started 2 weeks ago. And he's like, if you don't apply, I'm never coming back to Winona. And I was like, well.
Give you an ultimatum right there.
I went home, and I was like, I can't do this without Noah. I applied, and gave it my shot, and I was like, you know what, there's no way. Yeah. Got an interview, I did the interview, and actually the day before the interview, I went on my campus. The Reproductive Justice Club was hosting a fake women's health center talk, and they call pregnancy resource centers fake women's health centers. That's what they call them. I was like, federally qualified health centers are fake women's health centers.
Yikes.
It's like, nice try, guys. And they brought in this lady from Minneapolis, and she came and talked. And I mean, I still have all the notes and everything, but everything she said could be reversed to come back at Planned Parenthood. Yeah. It was like, she was like saying all these crazy things, and I was like, that's not these federally qualified health centers, that's Planned Parenthood. Mm-hmm. Like, and so I give kudos to her because it made my interview go very well, because I could talk about how that had just happened. And so I had the interview the next day. It went really well. They're like, well, you'll hear in about a month. I was like, cool. And so fast forward to April. I was getting back into gymnastics, but I had been having some shoulder pain. So I finally went to the doctor, because that's something we didn't do very often. And I ended up finding out I was going to have shoulder surgery pretty bad.
Wow.
I had a slap tear. So torn UCL, or no, that was my elbow. Torn in my shoulder, and they were like, you're going to have surgery, and it's going to end your career.
Yikes.
And I was like, well, now what do I do? I mean, Jamie the gymnast. People knew me on their cell phones, Jamie the gymnast. You know, I was 5th in the nation on bars my freshman year. Like, that was my whole identity.
I don't know if you remember, but I was at your graduation party, I think like 5 years ago.
Mm-hmm.
It was a while ago. I just remember seeing all the medals.
Yeah.
I remember that, yeah.
Yeah, and so, like, that's, like, who I was known as. And I put that as my identity. Yeah. And so, you know, and I had already been struggling because I hadn't been doing it as much as I had been. And I was, like, just kind of lost. And so, you know, they brought in my sports psychologist to tell me, like, we're not letting you go back. Like, you don't really have a say. Like, you're going to hurt yourself. And I was really sad. And then later that exact same day, around 2, so that appointment was at 11. At 2 p.m. that day, I got the email from Students for Life saying that I had been accepted into the fellowship. And I tell people all the time, that's God working. Because if it would have been reversed, I would have turned down that fellowship to continue my gymnastics career.
Yeah.
And I was like, it was crazy. It was just like God was telling me, okay, you've been a gymnast for how many years, and you've, you know, done things to please people that way. Yeah. Now it's time to switch over and give back. And little did I know that back then it would change into like all it is now. But I just got connected with Students for Life, and just all the great things they were doing, and you know, God was just really calling me to, do this for, him and for women, for families and everything. And I just never looked back because I realized how needed it was. So
yeah, especially in today's society and in the college area as well too. Talking a little bit about that, did you have any pushback from people, like students, about your club?
Yeah, so they didn't really want us to restart our club. It wasn't terrible because it had been so sustained over the long periods of time. But we get worse pushback from the students. We've had terrible experiences. We're probably one of the most hated groups across the country is at Winona State. We get treated the worst, and I think it's because we're so active. But 2 years ago, we were doing a prayer event. We had been invited from the community, so it wasn't even our event, but it was on the street across from our university.
Okay.
And the Reproductive Justice Club decided they would come and interrupt our silent hour of prayer with bullhorns, and they were playing the music WAP over loudspeakers. And all the community was there because it was a church event. So all the community was there. We had priests there, and we were just standing there praying silently for an hour. And so I, doing my fellowship kind of things and being involved, I started filming because that's what we're always told to do, is you have to film because people don't believe this stuff happens. And it's for your own safety.
Because they'll twist it back on you too, Well,
it's for your own safety too, because crazy things happen, and I'm gonna say, but these people just swarmed me, and it was insane. And they, were hitting me with their signs, and then this one girl started saying, we don't listen to white women. And I was like, excuse me, what does my race have to do with this at all? And, she's like, y'all gonna listen to another white girl? That's just sad. I was like, I'm not even saying anything. I'm here praying by myself. Yeah. But then, a little bit later after that, and I have this on video, another girl comes over and basically says, when you get raped and end up pregnant. And so we were just talking about how that girl came over to me and was like, we don't listen to white women. And I was like, okay.
When you open with that, I feel like whatever comes after that,
it's not going to be good.
Yeah, it never is.
Yeah. And so about 30 seconds after that happened, some girl came over and said, when you get raped and end up pregnant, I'm going to laugh, bitch. I'm going to laugh so effing hard, bitch. Right to my face.
To your face.
Yeah. And I was utterly shocked. Cause we had experienced other things before.
Yeah.
But nothing like that. I was like, and she didn't say if. She said when. I was like, okay, we decided we were gonna just pack up for the day and go, because I was like, okay, this is starting to get scary, because they had already been threatening families, children. They were telling parents that their children didn't love them, that their children wish they would have had been aborted because they were being there today and stuff. And I know a lot of the families that were there, those children wanted to be there.
Yeah.
They might not understand fully what's going on yet, but they wanted to be there.
Yeah.
And when you're young, we're talking under 10. Yeah. Your parents have the right to bring you there. It's not indoctrinating you. It's none of that. It's just raising you with good morals.
Exactly.
Something you do on the weekend. We go and pray.
Literally.
But, so that was the one instance that happened. This year, we have chalking events. Students for Life does National Chalk Days. So you go out on the sidewalks on your campus and you write, life-affirming messages. Pro-life is love. We write pregnancy help center line numbers. We, post-abortive helpline numbers, suicide awareness numbers, stuff like that. And it always gets destroyed every single year.
I imagine.
Which is against school policy, and the school never does anything about it. But this year was the craziest it had gotten. We were out there doing it. We do it at night for the next day.
Yeah. Because
we don't want to interrupt traffic, and it's safer for us, because
understandably so.
Out of the 35 of us, 30 of us are women. And so we get nervous, and we've had issues before. But this year, the same people that actually destroyed it last year, they came back at night while we were out there, and they actually poured rubbing alcohol on me while I was trying to protect our chalk. Yeah, I have the whole thing on video.
Oh my gosh.
It was insane. Like, I was wearing pants and everything, and like even that, like that amount would not have hurt me or anything, but their intention, because they knew rubbing alcohol is a dilutant of chalk, that they were there it wasn't like they were walking through and they had their water bottles like people usually do, you know, like they had fully prepared and intended to come and do this and then pour it on me. While I was like what's the point?
You can't defend that.
No. And then, you know, and like I couldn't even believe it, but it was just insane. And, you know, previous years we'd had issues with people like erasing the stuff, and we had one girl who like slapped my phone out of my hand and tried to make me drop it and stuff. But like it's gotten so much crazier like the further we're like older we're getting.
Why do you think that is?
I think because we're finally starting to see a shift in politics and in culture to protect life.
Yeah.
And people think that their rights are getting removed or in danger because they've been lied to. They don't know what actually abortion is. They don't know what true women's rights are and stuff. And so they think, you know, oh my goodness, my rights as a person are about to be removed. And they're so afraid of what might happen because they just think that women's empowerment is connected to abortion, and it's not, because I mean, abortion is just
kind of the opposite of
it's terrible.
It's a you can't message. There's no empowering happening.
Well, and it was created to, you know, suppress women and make them more like men.
Yeah.
It was also created and rooted in eugenics. They were trying to eliminate the black race. Margaret Sanger, the founder of Planned Parenthood, created Planned Parenthood to eliminate the black race.
Wow.
Oh yeah, she's huge eugenicist. She was caught at like a KKK meeting. Yeah, she's terrible. Planned Parenthood is actually recently, when a lot of the Black Lives Matter stuff came out, they like denounced her and have kind of removed her from things, and we're still over here like, we know what's up.
Yeah.
Like, you can't deny it, you know, and it's just...
That's insane.
Yeah.
It's kind of scary. It's. I feel like looking at some of the stuff that's happening, and it feels like it's very planned, especially like how the media and everything like seems to be working with like politics and whatnot. Why do you think... So you said people are scared that their rights are going to be taken away and whatnot. For someone who like is very pro-abortion, how would you start like with trying to like convince them that that's not the right way? Because I have family members who are pro-abortion, like people who are close to me, and it's a topic that like when it gets brought up or even mentioned, they immediately, you can tell like the mood changes. Defensive or even aggressive, and whatnot. And like for having productive conversation, you can't have that. Like how would you start that with someone who might?
So that's one of the things, obviously, all the time on campus we're doing. And it's interesting because usually my conversations with people who are considered pro-abortion on my campus, they last over an hour. Because we go in this circle of things. And it usually starts with, they come up to us with some type of argument. And it starts from there. But a lot of the times right now we're seeing is that, you know, people are worried about what we call it the post-Roe generation is going to look like, post-Roe world, which means life after Roe v. Wade once it's reversed. And, you know, they don't realize, like, and you just have to convince them, like, we're not just going to take away your rights and then just leave you. Like, we have these federally qualified health centers. We have these pregnancy resource centers. In fact, we have, like, 11-to-1 pregnancy resource centers in this country to Planned Parenthoods.
Wow.
So they're outnumbering
That's interesting,
the Planned Parenthoods. And it's something like each pregnancy resource center would have to take on X amount of patients a week to make up for Planned Parenthood. And it's not very much. I don't remember the number off the top of my head.
There's a very reasonable thing that could be done.
It's a very reasonable thing that could be done. And, you know, we're starting to see policy change, paid family leave. You know, like when mom ends up having a child, because a lot of it is a financial issue. You know, we're seeing policies put in place where we might have paid family leave, you know, and stuff like that. You know, the adoption system, we're fixing that. The foster care system, we're working to fix that. But there's so many resources available, people just don't know about.
Yeah.
We go and we door knock for pregnancy resource centers all of the time. And, we knock on the door. Hi, are you aware there's a Planned Parenthood in your neighborhood? Yeah, I was like, are you aware there's 3 pregnancy resource centers? What's that? I'm like, how do people don't know? And I'm like they're here, they, free diapers, free formula, they help. It's like, we're here to help you. We don't want to just take away your rights and leave you to dry. And that's what people constantly think. But, pro-life people are the ones running the pregnancy resource centers. We're the ones running the adoption centers. We're the ones adopting the kids, and stuff. So it's just like taking them out of that fear. And it's bad too, because when Roe v. Wade in 1973 got voted on, Bernard Nathanson, who founded NARAL Pro-Choice America, made up all of these lies about back alley abortions and illegal abortions, and it's actually quite comical because illegal abortions actually increased after Roe versus Wade went in place.
Really?
Yeah.
Why do you think that is?
Because it wasn't as stereotyped, and so people were like, well, it's okay at this point, I'm past the date a little bit, let's do it, and or for different reasons and stuff. It's just there was more access to it, so there was more of an availability to do it illegally.
Interesting.
So
okay, yeah.
And he actually Nathanson on his deathbed admitted that he had lied about it to try and get funding for this movement and stuff. And most people don't know that.
That's super interesting.
Yeah. But so they're all worried about going back into the 60s and stuff when the 60s weren't even that bad. And the other thing is too is, the women are gonna die. It's all this stuff, and it's people typically follow the law. So if abortion will be illegal, they're not gonna do it.
Yeah.
And just because people are gonna, I always tell people too, just because abortion is legal and we want to keep it legal because it's safer, which is hilarious because no abortion is safe.
Yeah.
We're stopping a naturally bodily process of a pregnancy. We're killing a child and we're hurting the woman. But I always tell people, because that's their logic. I say, by that logic, why isn't bank robbery legal? Bank robbery legal? It would be safer for the robbers. Should we just make it legal because it would be safer for them? Because people still rob banks.
Oh yeah, it's going to happen regardless of
people might still get abortions, but does that mean we should keep it legal? Absolutely not.
Exactly.
Anything. People still murder people.
Should be legal. Oh. And I feel especially too the whole drug use and the safe use centers too as well, where it's just so you see, I feel there's a large trend in making bad things accessible, and I don't really understand that, especially nowadays.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's crazy.
Yeah, well, we see, you can go and look on ratemyclinic.org and whatever, and you can go and look at all the abortion facilities, and it'll tell you all the failed inspections they've had, all of the people they've sent to the hospitals. 2 weeks ago, the mega Planned Parenthood in DC had just sent a woman to the hospital, and this isn't an unknown occurrence.
The media just shies away from reporting all that because
wow. There's video evidence. You can go on YouTube, look it up of they say Planned Parenthood cares about women. It makes me laugh. There's this video of a 911 call, and the person is calling the ambulance for someone in their clinic. They had perforated her uterus during an abortion, so she was bleeding out, and they told the ambulance it was during rush hour traffic, no lights and sirens. We don't want any attention, and this lady's dying.
It's insane.
Yeah, you definitely care about women. No, you care about how you look in the media because you want your money.
Exactly.
And that's all they want.
I remember there was a big scandal a few years back about, I think it was within the year, about selling parts of fetuses.
Yeah.
As well. Tell me a little bit more about that.
Yeah, so they were selling aborted fetuses to medical researchers to do testing, basically, on them. And obviously that's unethical to begin with, but it was still kind of legal in a sense. But then Planned Parenthood itself started changing their abortion procedures to try and get the fetuses to come out whole. Yeah.
That's so bad.
So they were putting the women in danger to make the extra money to sell these fetuses.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah. And then what's even crazier about it is because the journalist who uncovered all of this, he went undercover, and he ended up going to dinner with like the Planned Parenthood people and pretended to be like a buyer and all this stuff to try and expose it. And he brought it to the courts in California, and instead of charging Planned Parenthood, they charged him.
Yeah.
For going undercover and all this stuff.
It's unfortunate that I'm not even surprised by that.
No, and even to get more into the politics side of it, Kamala Harris was the one that charged him.
Oh, yeah. It doesn't surprise me knowing that. Jesus. It's insane.
And it's still happening.
Oh, I'd imagine so. Do you think the laws have to change first or the culture has to change first? Because it's a big question. I don't think you can have a fully positive change without both.
Yeah.
But where do you think it begins?
I always say culture is down from law. The laws change first and culture follows. We saw that with the Martin Luther King, civil rights movement. Way before people actually started to recognize African Americans as equal, we had switched and outed slavery.
Yeah.
We still have people nowadays who are incredibly racist, unfortunately. But if we would have waited for the culture, who knows where it would have been? Because, we had a war going on about keeping slaves or not, recognizing black people or not. And the law had changed. And then all these people recognized, and they changed with it. Same thing happened with abortion. Because back in the day, more people were pro-life than pro-abortion. Then abortion became legal, so they thought it was okay. And that's why I say, laws change people's perspectives. Because, we all, as bad as it is, we all trust the government, and we think they know what they're doing is best, so therefore, whatever they say, we go with.
Yeah.
We see that a lot nowadays.
Yeah.
So I always say, we attack at the law level at the same time as we're attacking with culture, but eventually the culture will come back and go with the law. But till the laws, you can change them, you have to focus on the culture.
If you were to give a timeline of it's very hard to think when things are going to go through. When do you think? Because I know the idea of it being outlawed soon. I know you share that.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, I think I'm a little bit more pessimistic when it comes to that. Just knowing people in general. But when would you say? Could you give a timeline to where you think? Well, I want to hear it. Tell me more.
Right now in the Supreme Court, Dobbs versus Jackson out of Mississippi is being heard. It is a 15-week abortion ban that is out of Mississippi. It was put into place a few years ago, and it got back and forth in the courts. It ended up at the Supreme Court. They picked it up. They heard it December 1st. I was on these steps of the Supreme Court. I
remember you posting about that.
It was amazing, and they're expected to give that ruling at the end of June, early July, and I 100% believe they will uphold that 15-week ban. That 15-week ban directly challenges Roe versus Wade, because Roe versus Wade allows abortion through viability. 15 weeks is before viability. Therefore, if they uphold that law, they will have to revisit Roe versus Wade. And Roe versus Wade, whether you are pro-abortion or not, is terrible legislation. How can you base something on viability when viability is different for every single person?
Literally, yeah.
We can't make laws that are in this case, we can't do that. It's got to be concrete legislation. And even pro-choice experts are saying Roe v. Wade could fall. The New York Times is saying we're looking towards this post-Roe world. We have to start preparing at the state level, because once Roe versus Wade gets reversed, which I'm hoping it's going to happen,
everything,
it goes back to the state level where it should be all along, because the states should be in control of this, and then we'll have to go in and fight at every state level. And right now, in Wisconsin here, it's seeming pretty good that we would be a pro-life state. Now in Minnesota, where I go to school, it's a totally different story. It's, wildly pro-abortion, and they'll keep abortion legal, but...
That's unfortunate.
Yeah.
So when on the other side of it, I remember you saying in your church group earlier that there's a lot of people who are very lukewarm, if that, when it comes to abortion. Why do you think that is? In a place where it should be upholding both the biblical and moral side of everything, why do you think people are so turned away from that?
Yeah, so for people who are like pro-life and just they don't speak out about it, I think they're just so worried about the judgment that other people are going to bring them. And I was a little bit worried about that at first, but that judgment, that hate, whatever you want to call it, harassment, assault, I mean, that comes to me, and it should be for other people, but they're not there yet, and hopefully one day they will get there, outweighs the cost of these 73 million children who have been killed to abortion since 1973. All of their families, all of the women. And at the end of the day, I finally told myself, no matter what people think about me, I answer to one person at the end of the day, and that's God.
You have to stand for something.
When I get to heaven, those people who are telling me I'm going to get raped, those people pouring rubbing alcohol on me, it doesn't matter.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter. He's the one that I'm going to answer to, and I really would like to go to heaven. So if he's calling me to do this, that's what I'm going to do. And but just for some people, it's too scary. I mean, you can't blame them. Who wants to go and get rubbing alcohol poured on them? Who wants to be known as like the most hated person on their college campus, basically? Jamie the pro-birther. Like, that's my new name instead of Jamie the gymnast. But like, to me, it doesn't matter. It's so much more important. And
unfortunately, I feel like most people kind of forget to grasp the importance, the moral consequences that they have for their actions.
Right.
On the small scale, it can like be minimal to even massive, like implications of what they do or don't do have. And that's kind of what I realized too, like what the damage that I could be doing by not speaking about this and not making people know what I believe in could outweigh whatever harassment I was received based on that. And it's a very scary thought. Like we have huge consequences day to day. And that's kind of where it came from for me. In the church community, why do you think so many people, so you said that fear-based as well too, for the people who are pro-abortion, how can they bridge both worlds? Like, I don't understand. I feel like the internal conflicts that I would have if I tried to say that I believed in God, Jesus, and the Bible, but was still pro-abortion, like I couldn't do it. Yeah,
there's a lot of people who are, a lot of Christians. I mean, there's this whole new, like, Catholics for Choice. They're a big organization. In fact, on the anniversary of Roe v. Wade, there was in D.C., they were praying at the monastery. I believe it was the monastery. I could be wrong. Or no, it was the basilica. They were praying at the basilica, and Catholics for Choice projected on the basilica as the pro-life students were praying, Catholics for Choice on it. And to me, as someone who's Catholic, even if I was maybe pro-choice, pro-abortion, I respect other people's prayer.
Yeah.
I don't think I would ever do something like that. Like, that's just so uncalled for. But it comes down to the fact that, they want to be Catholic by name, but they still want control. And, like, in the Catholic faith, control is, like, something, we have to give it to God. Like, God's in control. We're not in control. Like, he's ultimately in control. But they believe that they're doing God's will, which is crazy because they think that abortion not having access to abortion hurts people. They truly believe, I've ran into people, they truly believe that a child would be better off dead than in the foster care, better off dead than in poverty, better off dead than having Down syndrome.
That's crazy.
It's actually insane, and they just believe that having the right to your own body, bodily autonomy, which true bodily autonomy would be given to the unborn child, but
it's almost an oxymoron, like bodily autonomy when you're literally taking someone's own life from them as a result of that.
Your bodily autonomy stops when it harms another person.
Exactly.
We see that in the laws.
Why do you think there's such a big difference between, like, I've seen some things, some pro-life arguments to where they bring up the fact, like, how can something be a clump of cells and then a few weeks later be a kid? And why does the law change at that point? Do you think it's just like our definition? The definition has to change first?
Yeah, well, I think a lot of it is we're giving, and this sounds so bad, but we give too much power almost to the women to decide whether it's a life, whether it's not. We sit here and we allow, like, it's crazy to me. So just, like, think about it. Women have abortions, like, later on in their pregnancy, right? And we call that empowerment. A woman could have a miscarriage earlier than someone has an abortion, and we allow her to grieve her child.
Yeah. Doesn't make any sense.
Why is it so? If the woman decides it's a child and that she wants this child, then we allow it to be a child. Yeah. And we'll charge someone with double murder if they kill her.
Yeah.
But if she decides it's not a child and she wants to abort it, that's empowerment. Even if it's later on in the pregnancy.
I feel like as a culture we've become our own gods.
Yep.
I mean, that's it's just clear. It's not even a feeling. It's what the media tries to tell you. With like the whole what's the one movement, New Age, like the whole New Age stuff,
yes.
like you are your own god.
Yeah.
You know, it's just bullshit. I look at it, it's just kind of a joke.
Well, I mean, it comes down to like philosophy, and like there's this whole idea right now, because a lot of this is philosophy as well, which rides with morals. And basically people are saying like you create your own philosophy and your own morals, and it should be based just on you, which doesn't make any sense, because how would we do laws?
Yeah.
Like, but that's like a whole thing that has just like started to come out, and it's just crazy.
It's interesting. Yeah, it's not good at all.
No.
It's really interesting. I feel like as a whole, like even if you were to like, you can't explain the moral calling that we have as humans. You know, it's not we're not just apes who just murder and kill and rape and like there's consequences at a deep level, and it's certainly developed and become a lot more refined nowadays. Or I mean, less refined with how like everything's going in general, but like we've developed in a way to where there's always been some moral calling to where it's preserving family, preserving life, and overall just good values that have changed certainly, but like I feel like it's just one of the it's a truth that just doesn't. You can't ignore it in general. No. And saying killing a child, even if it's in the womb, you can't like explain why that's a good thing. And I get how some people are like to protect women and all that, but like you aren't protecting the life of the kid.
No. Well, and I mean, too, people don't realize, like, I'm a psychology major, so a lot of it for me is like mental health, and I really care about mental health and, you know, that aspect of well-being. You know, they say it protects the woman. Well, what about the fact that there's post-abortive syndrome and she could suffer from that for the rest of her life? It's 110% more likely to commit suicide after having an abortion, 100% more likely to develop depression and anxiety. Like, not only the physical things that can happen to you, such as, you know, if you don't carry a pregnancy to term, you're more likely to develop breast cancer. And that's also the case for if you have a miscarriage, just not carrying a pregnancy to term in general. But now you're adding that, like you're choosing to have that, you know, and the perforated uterus and all of these things. It's
a million other side effects that can happen,
And it's like, and they don't know that. But, you know, post-abortive syndrome, whether you like it or not, is a real thing. You can look it up. There's even in the Guttmacher Institute, which is a pro-abortion like website that does their own research, has talked about this is a real thing. Yeah. Like it does. I mean, it doesn't happen for everyone. Just like the same thing as postpartum depression doesn't happen for everyone, but it happens.
Yeah, it's
why would you put yourself in that risk, in that danger? Why would you choose that?
There's also, I feel like there's a lot of lying too about like, oh, you won't get this. You'll be fine. You'll be safe and whatnot. And that's just blatantly, I feel like.
Right. Well, and I always tell people like, an abortion is a temporary Band-Aid to whatever problem you're actually experiencing. Because whatever's driving you to have that abortion is the real problem, and it doesn't get solved by having the abortion. It's a temporary Band-Aid. Whether it's poverty isn't solved by an abortion. In fact, your abortion is going to cost you over $1,000.
That's crazy. I didn't actually know that.
Yeah. Well, the pills are around $400, and then later on, we're talking thousands of dollars. And such, you know, or, you know, maybe it's, you know, domestic violence. Killing the child is not going to solve the fact that your partner's a terrible person. No. Like, it doesn't solve anything. It's a temporary Band-Aid, and women deserve better than temporary Band-Aids. Yeah. So.
Wow. That's you've brought forth a lot of stuff that I haven't even really thought of too. Being someone who's pro-life myself, what do you think in the church community especially, what do you think is there a change that has to happen?
Absolutely.
And how would you go about doing that?
So I have had a lot of conversations in like the Catholic Church, and not necessarily priests, but the people.
Yeah.
So I think there's a lot of pro-life people in our church, and honestly, like being Catholic and everything, you know, I follow the rules. They're not rules; they're ways of living that everyone should be following. But 40% of the women who are getting abortions are Catholic.
Doesn't even surprise me.
Because we are so judgmental on having sex outside of marriage. And now I'm not saying go and have sex outside of marriage. I don't think that's okay. But how can we sit there and judge a woman for having sex outside of marriage and then also judge her and not want her to get an abortion?
Yeah.
Because if she gets an abortion, then people don't find out about these sex outside of marriage. And like I said, it's back to this temporary Band-Aid.
Temporary Band-Aid, yeah.
But so we need to sit here and not encourage, obviously, sex outside of marriage, but offer up this forgiveness and then help and let them know that, okay, we understand this mistake happened, but look at what God gave you out of this mistake, like a child, you know, and we can't sit there and criticize someone who's pregnant outside of marriage and then also criticize them when they get an abortion. It doesn't work that way.
Yeah.
You're pushing them to go and kill their child. And I mean, what's worse? Now we have two issues.
Oh, yeah.
We have the pregnancy outside of marriage with an abortion, or we have the pregnancy outside of marriage where we can go and be forgiven and be healed, have this child, and then support from the church.
But there's no support.
But there's no support because we're too afraid that we'll be supporting sex outside of marriage, which isn't going to happen. We're not supporting that.
No, you can love someone without supporting their actions.
Exactly. And we're telling people, you know, like, if this does happen, which, I mean, it shouldn't, but if it does, because we know, unfortunately, it's going to happen. Even, too, it might not even be consensual sex. We know it's going to happen. So we have to be there to love and support them instead of criticize.
That's interesting. I feel like, I don't know, I think this is just a religious people's problem in the whole in general, but I feel like they like to pick and choose which moral battles they're willing to fight.
Yes.
And that's always surprised me too, because like, even in some cases, it's very anti-sex before marriage, but porn is okay.
Yes.
Like that is always, that's been one that I've seen blatantly. Like they have a problem, they have an issue, but they'll hate on the person. I mean, and they shouldn't agree with their actions. Yeah. But there's hate and judgment brought towards the person who has sex. Yep. It's certainly picking these things, and the same thing with abortion. I know people who identify as Catholic who are cool with abortion, not good against sex before marriage, and it just blows my mind because it's just, I feel like when you try to be all these things at once, they conflict, and the good parts of you aren't fully good either because there's always things that are just bouncing off of each other. Yeah. I really struggled with the Catholic faith in general because I feel like it was a lot of people who weren't willing to stand up for the right thing. And just, I would say honestly, just Christians in general, unfortunately. I'd walk into a room of people who couldn't even look me in the eye, and like when it came to like talking about what they believed in, they just wouldn't. And that was what really pushed me away initially. I think this would begin with the person itself, but like what can we do to encourage that, to encourage like strength? Because I think there's a huge misconception. Being a nice person does not make you a good person or a moral person. And we lost that at some point. Where do you think that begins?
I mean, I honestly think it starts with the good people that are like, you know, the good people who are doing these things, who are fighting, who are standing up to encourage those other people that they've met in church. And, you know, a lot of it too comes from the bishop and
which one?
The Pope. So the popes to the bishops to their priests.
Do you think the current leadership and hierarchy in the Catholic Church, do you think it's doing what it should be right now? So I am not a fan of the Pope. I am not either. I get very communist ideals.
Yes. I pray for the Pope. And you know, he's supposed to reflect God and Jesus, and I think he could do maybe a better job. But I think, you know, he's ultimately the person on earth that we can look up to. You know, because he's a physical being on this earth that we can look up to. So a lot of people see him, you know, and they're like, okay, whatever he's doing in support, that's like what we can do. And then he's over there in the corner, like half the time saying, you know, I mean, not intentionally saying abortion is okay, but things that kind of like lead to this idea of maybe it's like okay. And then the other half the time he's like, no, pro-life. And it's like, dude, like he can't.
Yes.
Like what's going? You can't. He's wishy-washy, and no one really knows exactly on certain things where he stands.
I haven't. Yeah, it's very hard to find like, I feel like there's always like a bullet that's being dodged when like trying to like skirt around answers and like giving very like incomplete answers on things, and that's not like looking at as a person who's looking towards strength. There isn't strength.
Right.
You want to follow the person who is a person like a man of consequence, who like backs up what they say with their actions and is unapologetic in how they act, and that's just it. Just isn't like, especially as a guy who like looks towards strong leadership, it just isn't attractive at all.
It's not there, unfortunately, but you know, all we can do is pray for him. But I mean, it comes back to us in our church like settings, like, you know, in college right now, you know, Focus, Fellowship of Catholic University Students is what I'm involved in and stuff. I mean, I lead a Bible study. I'm in a Bible study. I go to church every Sunday. We do things like I go there to study, stuff like that. Like, there's just such a culture, and now just with our people, right? But like you graduate from college and then you go back to your church and there's not even Bible studies. There's not even youth groups. Like, it's like, what? Like, so we need people like us who are going to lead Bible studies, you know, after they graduate or after high school, or like, you know, start youth groups and all these things to encourage this culture. And then people, because a lot of it too is people are so afraid, but once you build yourself up with this group of people, it makes it easier.
Oh yeah.
So
being surrounded by people like-minded. I want to pick up with like Bible studies and whatnot, and what can we do?
Yeah, just, I mean, trying to encourage, like, because at the churches there seems like, I always say listen to the old people, which is hilarious, in the nicest way possible. They know what they're doing.
Yeah.
Like, the community of, like, the older generation in the churches is, like, they go out to breakfast together, they go and pray together. Like, my mom has this group she calls her old man posse, her OMPs. They're all, like, over 90, and then it's my mother.
That's
and,
cool.
like, they just get together for coffee, they talk about life, they talk about church, you know, they have great times. My mom goes to Planned Parenthood every Friday to pray.
That's awesome.
And my mom's over 50. I won't. But, the people that are there, she's the youngest. They're like 70s that are out there, dedicated,
cool.
convinced. And she's like, you know, and I go when I'm home.
Yeah.
We don't have an abortion facility near my school, which is a good problem to have. But, like, the younger generation, even, I mean, our age, but as well as 30s, 40s, you know, like, we have to do things, and we need to look up to those people and realize it's not lame.
Yeah.
Having that type of community is not lame. Standing up for what you believe in is not lame. Going to Bible study is not lame. Going to confession, like we heard in church today, not lame.
Yeah.
Like, we just need to create more of a culture of, like, faith and life in general.
Yeah.
So people just need to, like, make time in their day to have, like, time for God and fellowship, basically, with other people.
Very simple answer for almost a complex problem, but I think it fits really well with just understanding humans as a whole and how they work, and just like creating a supportive structure around you that reinforces moral ideals that have to be followed if we're going to actually succeed as a culture and society. And yeah, that's awesome. Thank you for coming on. Where can they find you on social media?
Yeah, so my Instagram handle is jamie.s_life, and that's where I post all of my, like, pro-life related things, faith related things, conservative values related things.
Go follow her.
Yeah.
Check her
Follow
out.
me. If you have any questions, or if you're pro-choice yourself, you can slide into my DMs. We can have a civil conversation. You know, everyone's welcome. So.
Well, thank you so much for coming on today.
Thank you for having me.